Friends, let me begin with one of the most powerful truths Zig Ziglar ever shared. It's not your aptitude, but your attitude that determines your altitude. In other words, it's not just what you know, not just how smart you are, not even how talented you may be, but how you choose to think, how you choose to see, how you choose to respond, that will ultimately decide how high you fly in life. I want you to picture an airplane for a moment. Before that plane can take off, before it can climb higher and higher into the sky, the pilot has to check something called the attitude indicator. The attitude of the plane determines whether the nose is tilted upward or downward. If the attitude is wrong, the plane cannot rise. But if the attitude is right, the plane climbs to greater heights. Life works the exact same way. Your attitude is the indicator that determines whether you stay stuck on the ground or whether you soar to the top. The truth is, we all face challenges. We all face storms. Some people crumble under pressure while others rise stronger. What's the difference? It's not always intelligence, money, or resources. It's attitude. Because attitude is the lens through which you see life. Two people can go through the same problem and come out with completely different results. One sees defeat. The other sees opportunity. One says, "This is the end." The other says, "This is my new beginning." Let me share a simple story. There were two brothers raised in the same difficult environment. Their father was an alcoholic. Their family struggled, and their future looked bleak. Years later, one of them ended up in prison, and the other became a successful leader. When asked why, both gave the same answer. With a father like mine, how could I be any different? Do you see the lesson? The circumstances were the same, but their attitudes toward those circumstances shaped two entirely different destinies. Friends, I want to ask you today, what is the attitude you're carrying? Because that attitude is either lifting you up or dragging you down. A negative attitude blinds you to possibilities, paralyzes your faith, and poisons your future. But a positive, faith-filled attitude opens doors, fuels your energy, and attracts opportunities you never thought possible. Zig Ziglar used to say, positive thinking won't let you do anything, but it will let you do everything better than negative thinking will. And isn't that the truth? Positive thinking doesn't magically erase problems, but it equips you to face them with courage. It doesn't guarantee the absence of storms, but it guarantees you'll rise above them. Your attitude, not your situation, decides whether you stay grounded or soar. So let me challenge you, starting today, check your attitude, adjust your mindset. Choose gratitude over bitterness, hope over despair, faith over fear. Because when you fix your attitude, you fix your altitude, and the sky is no longer the limit. It becomes your runway. Friends, let's dig deeper into this idea, the power of attitude. Because when Zig Ziglar said, it's not your aptitude, but your attitude that determines your altitude, he wasn't giving us a cute slogan. He was giving us a success principle that has transformed millions of lives. Talent alone is never enough. Intelligence alone is never enough. Skill alone is never enough. Why? Because talent without the right attitude can turn arrogant. Intelligence without the right attitude can turn prideful. Skill without the right attitude can become wasted potential. But when you combine even average talent with the right attitude, the results can be extraordinary. I once met a young salesman who wasn't the most gifted communicator. In fact, by traditional standards, he wasn't expected to succeed in sales. But do you know what he did have? An unshakable belief in himself and an unbreakable attitude of persistence. Every no he heard only motivated him to keep moving until he found his A's. While others quit, he kept smiling, kept trying, and kept showing up. And eventually, he outsold everyone else in the office. Not because he had the best aptitude, but because he carried the best attitude. That's what attitude does. It multiplies whatever you already have. If you have a little talent, attitude makes it go further. If you have average resources, attitude stretches them. If you have limited opportunities, attitude helps you see possibilities where others see dead ends. Zig used to say, positive thinking won't let you do anything, but it will let you do everything better than negative thinking will. A good attitude doesn't mean you'll never face obstacles. It means you'll face them with the strength and perspective to overcome them. Think about athletes. Many of them share the same physical training, the same diets, the same coaches. What separates the champions from the average? It's not always raw skill. It's the mindset. It's the way they think in the middle of pressure. Some crumble under the weight of competition, while others thrive because they have trained their minds to see pressure as an opportunity, not a threat. And it's the same in everyday life. Two employees may work at the same job with the same boss and the same salary. One complains, grows bitter, and sees no future. The other decides to show up with energy, optimism, and a willingness to learn. Guess who gets promoted? Guess who becomes the leader? It's not aptitude, it's attitude. The power of attitude also affects how we treat others. A positive attitude makes you approachable, makes people trust you, makes people want to follow you. A negative attitude pushes people away. Zig Ziglar believed in servant leadership, that success was not about stepping on people, but about lifting them. And the only way to do that is by choosing an attitude of encouragement, kindness, and faith. Friends, your attitude is contagious. Whether you realize it or not, you are influencing people around you every day. At work, at home, in your community, your attitude sets the tone. The question is, are you spreading hope or are you spreading despair? Are you lifting people up or are you pulling them down? That's why the power of attitude cannot be underestimated. It shapes your actions, it shapes your relationships, and ultimately, it shapes your destiny. The right attitude won't remove every challenge, but it will empower you to face those challenges with courage and persistence. And in the long run, that's what creates true winners. So let me remind you once more, your future is not in the hands of talent alone. Your destiny is not decided by skill alone. It's decided by the way you think, the way you believe, and the way you choose to see the world. Because in the end, your attitude is your altitude. Friends, here's a truth you can carry with you for the rest of your life. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. And your response is shaped by one thing: your attitude. Two people can face the exact same problem and walk away with two completely different outcomes. One person sees an obstacle, the other sees an opportunity. One sees a wall, the other sees a stepping stone. One says, "This is the end." The other says, "This is just the beginning." And the difference is not education, not background, not resources. It's attitude. I remember Zig Ziglar once shared about a man who lost his job. One person in that situation might say, "I've been rejected." Another person with the right attitude says, "This is my chance to grow. This is my chance to start something new." Same event, but a totally different outcome because of attitude. Think about Joseph in the Bible. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, wrongly accused, and thrown into prison. He could have chosen an attitude of bitterness and despair, but instead, he chose faith, he chose hope, he chose integrity. And because of that attitude, God lifted him from the prison to the palace. Friends, your attitude shapes your response, and your response shapes your destiny. Now let's bring this closer to home. Imagine two students who both fail their exams. One says, "I'm just not smart enough," and gives up on studying. The other says, "I need to work harder. I need to learn differently. Try again." A year later, their lives look completely different, not because of aptitude, but because of attitude. Or take athletes as an example. Two players can lose the same game. One blames the coach, the weather, the referee. The other says, well, practice harder, we'll come back stronger. Guess which one ends up being a champion? The answer is simple, the one with the right attitude. Zig Ziglar said, you cannot tailor-make the situations in life, but you can tailor-make the attitudes to fit those situations before they ever come up. That means you decide in advance how you'll respond. You prepare your mind to choose gratitude instead of bitterness, faith instead of fear, persistence instead of quitting. Because life will test you. Life will throw curveballs. Life will knock on your door with problems you didn't expect. But if your attitude is strong, your response will always keep you moving forward. Here's the good news. Your attitude is not fixed. You can change it today. You can decide that from this day forward. You won't complain. You'll be grateful. You won't fear. You'll trust. You won't quit. You'll persevere. That decision will transform not just how you see problems, but how you overcome them. So ask yourself, when challenges come, do I react with fear or do I respond with faith? Do I shut down with negativity or do I rise up with positivity? Because life will always test your attitude, and your attitude will always determine your altitude, friends. It's not what happens to you that matters most. It's what happens inside you. And if your inside is filled with the right spirit, the right faith, and the right perspective, there's nothing on the outside that can keep you from reaching the top. Friends, by now we know that attitude is the key. But the question is, how do you build a winning attitude? Because attitude is not automatic. It's not something you're born with. It's something you develop day by day, choice by choice. Zig Ziglar often said, your attitude, not your aptitude, will determine your altitude. And the good news is anyone can build a winning attitude if they're willing to practice the right habits. The first step is gratitude. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's missing to what's already there. Every morning, before your feet hit the ground, make it a habit to thank God for at least 3 things. It might be your health, your family, your job, or simply the gift of a new day. Gratitude reprograms your mind to see blessings where others only see burdens. And when you live with gratitude, it's hard to stay negative. The second step is faith. A winning attitude is built on the belief that tomorrow can be better than today, and that you have a role to play in making it so. Faith gives you the courage to try again, to keep going when others quit, to see beyond your current circumstances. Zig would often remind us, expect the best, prepare for the worst, maximize what comes. That's what faith does. It gives you the confidence to expect the best even while preparing for life challenges. The third step is persistence. You can't build a winning attitude if you give up every time things get tough. Persistence is the muscle that keeps your attitude strong. It's saying, I will try again. I will keep moving. I will not quit. And here's the truth. Persistence isn't built in comfort. It's built in difficulty. Every time you push through resistance, your attitude grows stronger. The fourth step is environment. Your attitude is influenced by the people around you. If you surround yourself with complainers, you'll start complaining. If you surround yourself with encouragers, you'll start encouraging. Zig used to say, if you hang around with losers, you'll end up a loser. But if you hang around with winners, you'll learn how to win. So choose your circle wisely. And finally, the fifth step is daily renewal. Just like you can't take a shower once and expect to stay clean forever, you can't build a winning attitude once and expect it to last forever. You have to renew it daily through reading prayer, affirmations, and feeding your mind with positive, uplifting words. That's why listening to speeches, reading good books, and surrounding yourself with truth is so important. Friends, building a winning attitude is not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. It's about choosing gratitude over negativity, faith over fear, persistence over quitting, and surrounding yourself with the right influences. When you do these things daily, your attitude becomes unshakable. And once your attitude is right, your altitude takes care of itself. Friends, by now you understand that your attitude not only shapes your altitude, it also shapes your legacy. Because here's the truth, your attitude doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone around you. The way you think, the way you respond, the way you carry yourself leaves an imprint on your family, your friends, your coworkers, and even strangers you may never meet again. Zig Ziglar used to say, you never know when a moment and a few sincere words can have an impact on a life forever. And isn't that true? A smile, an encouraging word, a positive attitude can lift someone who's on the edge of giving up, and the opposite is also true. A negative attitude can crush a spirit and plant seeds of doubt. That's why your attitude is not just personal. It's powerful. It's contagious. Think about the home you live in. If a parent carries a negative attitude, the whole house feels heavy. But if that parent chooses gratitude, encouragement, and hope, the atmosphere changes. Children grow up believing they can achieve more. The spouses support each other with faith instead of fear. That's the legacy of attitude. Or think about leadership. The greatest leaders in history weren't just intelligent. They carried unshakable attitudes that inspired nations. Winston Churchill, facing the darkness of war, chose an attitude of courage and faith. Martin Luther King Jr., in the face of injustice, chose an attitude of hope and love. Their attitudes didn't just shape their lives, they shaped the world. Now let's bring it closer. Your workplace, your community, your family, they're all impacted by the attitude you bring. If you walk in complaining, criticizing, and doubting, people feel smaller around you. But if you walk in with hope, positivity, and encouragement, people rise taller around you. That's the legacy of attitude. And friends, legacy is what this is really about. Because one day, people will not remember how much money you made, what titles you held, or how many possessions you owned. They will remember how you made them feel. They will remember whether your attitude lifted them or crushed them. They will remember whether you gave them hope or left them in despair. So let me ask you, what legacy of attitude are you leaving behind? Are you teaching your children to see problems as barriers or as opportunities? Are you showing your friends that life is worth fighting for, even in the hardest seasons? Are you living as someone who spreads faith, love, and positivity, or as someone who drains the room with negativity? The good news is this: you get to decide. Every single day, you have the power to choose the legacy you will leave through your attitude. And when you choose gratitude, when you choose faith, when you choose persistence, you're not just lifting yourself, you're lifting everyone around you. Friends, the world is hungry for hope. People are desperate for encouragement. And sometimes the only sermon they'll hear is your attitude. You were born to win, and the way you carry yourself can remind others that they were born to win too. So as we close, let me remind you of this. It's not your aptitude, but your attitude that determines your altitude. And when you live with a winning attitude, hope, one filled with faith, hope, and persistence, you don't just rise, you help others rise with you. That is the true legacy of attitude. That is the secret to living a life that matters. And friends, with that spirit, I'll see you at the top. Friends, let me leave you with this thought. It's not your aptitude, but your attitude that determines your altitude. You may not control where you started. You may not control every storm that comes your way. but you can always control the spirit with which you face life. The right attitude will lift you when life tries to push you down. The right attitude will open doors that talent alone could never unlock. The right attitude will not just change your future, it will change the people around you. Because attitude is contagious. So today I challenge you, check your attitude. If it's filled with bitterness, replace it with gratitude. If it's filled with fear, replace it with faith. If it's filled with doubt, replace it with courage. Because your life will always rise or fall to the level of your attitude. And let me tell you, you were not created to stay on the ground. You were designed to soar. You were born to rise. And with the right attitude, nothing can stop you from reaching the top. So walk out of here today with your head lifted high, with your heart full of hope, and with your spirit declaring, my attitude determines my altitude, and I choose to fly higher. And friends, with that winning spirit, I'll see you at the top.